Are you looking for details of the most beautiful weekend walks in southeast Queensland? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Everyday Hiker podcast. My name is Beck and I'm your host. Join me and other guest hikers as we share amazing hiking locations and practical tips for hikes in the stunning southeast Queensland region, but also further afield. So whether you're new to hiking or just looking for some fresh ideas, I hope I can provide you with some inspiration. And if you like what you hear, please follow me and share with your friends. Okay, let's get into today's episode, which is our very first episode. And I thought about what would be most useful for people. And I live in Brisbane. I like to get out every weekend. Sometimes I can go further afield and sometimes I just want to go somewhere close to home. So I thought that today I would talk about 5 fantastic walk ideas that you can do in Brisbane, no more than 30 minutes from the city, and also accessible by public transport, which might be helpful if you don't have a car. So let's get straight into it. My first pick is Mount Coot-tha. It's pretty obvious. It's an iconic summit and most of us take our visitors there when we want to show them a great vista of Brisbane, perhaps a little bit of an Aussie bushwalk. And also there's a fantastic cafe and restaurant up the top, which is always rewarding, whether you're stopping for a cup of coffee, glass of wine or an ice cream. So Mount Coot-tha is most well-known, the most accessible and well-known track is the track leading from the JC Slaughter Falls car park. This is the first main car park you come to as you head up the mountain. It's got a lot of parking, there's some lovely picnic areas, and the track itself up to the summit, which is about 2 kilometres one way, is really well graded, so it's quite accessible. It walks up past a lovely gently running creek, and there's even some, sort of a small waterfalls that you pass. You can also take your dog, which is a bonus. But the thing with JC Slaughter Falls is, even though it's a very lovely and a quick, nice way, not too challenging way to get to the summit, it's also incredibly popular. So if you're out there on the weekend and you're thinking this wasn't quite the back to nature experience I was hoping for, here's a couple of other ideas when you're up at Mount Coot-tha. The first thing is there's about 5 other car parks if you just keep on going past the JC Slaughter Falls car park. One of the most popular is actually the Simpsons Falls, and you can actually go to the summit via some of these other car parks, and generally the tracks are a lot quieter, and in fact there are smaller tracks as well linking you up to the summit, which can be even quieter still. I definitely encourage you to take your map, have your map on, whether it's Google Map or I love using All Trails app. That's a great way. If you download it beforehand, you can always see where you started and make sure you're heading down the right track to get back to your car. The second alternative that I would suggest to you if you're out at Mount Coot-tha is actually come in via the Botanical Gardens. Now this is a great one if you're on the bus, because the buses heading out to Bardon stop down the bottom here. So this is one of the easiest ways to access Mount Coot-tha if you don't have a car. If you do have a car, there's plenty of car parking, both outside the planetarium and the Botanical Gardens, but there's also an overflow car park across the road because it does get busy as well on weekends, but a lot of these people are actually visiting the gardens and the planetarium, and there's another great cafe here rather than getting out on the trail behind it. So walking through the gardens is really nice. There's some terrific plant features. There's a lovely big lake with a water feature in it. So that walking through the gardens and out to the trail at the back will add a couple of kilometres onto your hike for sure. When you get to the back of the gardens, look for a trail called Spotted Gum. This will take you to that same destination, the summit of the mountain. It's a lot quieter. It's arguably a little bit steeper than JC Slaughter Falls. Round trip maybe 6 to 7 kilometres, but just a nice alternative if you're looking to get out on the weekend at Mount Coot-tha. Now the second area that I would recommend to you is Enoggera Reservoir. This is out about 25 minutes from the city, heading out west on Waterworks Road, and the main destination out at the reservoir is Walkabout Creek. This is run by Queensland Parks, and there's a number of features here, including there's a roped-off swimming area. You can also hire kayaks and stand-up paddleboards so you can get out on the reservoir itself. Some lovely picnic areas. There's a great cafe. This is a real highlight of going out here for after the walk. It's a cafe on a deck under the gum trees. There's a little wildlife reserve there, and there's also sort of event and function rooms. Now, given all of those facilities, it's popular again, particularly on the weekends. So you want to get out nice and early because the car park isn't huge at Walkabout Creek. This is a great starting point for a fairly easy hike if you're looking for a good one around Brisbane. Very pretty. That's only 5 kilometres. So it's called the Enoggera track, and it takes you literally around the reservoir. It's an in and out track. Like I said, easy, well graded. The reservoir itself is very pretty. You'll see wildlife, you'll see flowers. So that's a great family oriented or beginner type hike. For my money, if I'm going out to Enoggera Reservoir, I'd rather do the circuit, which is about 11 to 13 kilometres, depending on which way you do it. Now, if you are going to do the circuit, or even if you're doing the shorter track, you might consider parking at the Gap bus interchange. There's a bigger car park there, particularly on the weekends. You know, you can always get a spot in there. And also, this is where the bus stops. So if you're on the bus, jump off at the Gap interchange. Now, as you're walking out of the car park towards the reservoir, you'll see the dam wall, and you've got a choice of going left or right. If you go right, you go to Walkabout Creek. You can start the circuit by passing Walkabout Creek and coming back to your car. I like to go the other way for a couple of reasons. First, you're walking then past the cafe on the way back to the car. It's only about 500 metres, 700 metres, I think, to the cafe from that car park. The other reason, though, is that you walk up to the left, up onto the dam wall. It's kind of like a grassy hill and a track on it. It's not too steep, but it'll certainly get your heart pumping nice and early in the walk. On the way back, that's actually quite a steep hill. So if you were to go anti-clockwise, you'd have a nice long hill at the end of your 11 kilometres just before you reach the car. So I'd prefer to come in nice flat walk from the cafe. So I'd head left. Like I said, get up over the hill, you'll see the reservoir down below, and then follow the reservoir track all the way around to Walkabout Creek. If you keep the reservoir on your right, you shouldn't get lost, but I'd encourage you once again, get that All Trails map running, because there are some tracks a little bit further along that head up to Mount Nebo, and you certainly don't want to be taking those unless you're in for a long day walk. Once again, a really pretty track going around. There's a lovely area with a creek and some stepping stones, which is a nice break if it's a hot day. Even if it's a hot day, though, it's a fairly shady track all the way around. The one thing I will highlight to you, there's a few lung-busting hills in the middle there. They're the kind that you just put your head down and push on up. They're over pretty quickly, but they are steep. I'd suggest if you're a person who likes hiking with poles or you haven't tried it yet, this is a good one to take your poles on, because it can get a little bit, especially on a dry day, the gravel is loose and it can be a bit slippery going up and definitely coming down on your knees. So that's the only thing to watch out for on this track. Otherwise, another fantastic destination, particularly on a hot day, and you can have a swim afterwards at Enoggera Reservoir. Okay, for my third pick, we're heading south on the Southeast Freeway. This is actually probably the closest reserve to the city because it's only about a 10 to 15 minute drive down to Toohey Forest and surrounds. And if you're on the bus, you've got a couple of choices here. You can take buses to Tarragindi, to Toohey Road, where the main entrance is. You can also take buses to Griffith Uni because there's entrances at the back of the university to get into Toohey Forest as well. This is actually quite a large reserve if you include the fact that there are 2 lots of bushland on either side of Toohey Road, plus that bushland areas, like I said, around Griffith Uni campus. The main entry is off Toohey Road. If you're heading from the city up Toohey Road, the main car park is on the left. There's some decent car parking here. There's often overflow on the road as well. In this car park, there's fresh water, there's toilets, there's a couple of picnic tables, so it's a good place to meet people and kick off your hike. Now, the main track here is a track from this car park out to an entrance into Griffith Uni. The return walk is in sort of the 4 to 5 kilometre range. Once again, it's graded fairly easy. There's a little bit of elevation, but nothing too challenging. It's a really good track. It's mostly bitumen, in fact. There's just a bit of boardwalk along the way, but it's certainly one you can take kids or people that have, potentially some access issues, want to know that it's a good, solid track. And you can take dogs to this one as well. So that's the main track in and out. Very pretty in Toohey Forest. There's a lot of grass hill features. I like to get off the main track. It can be busy, not crazy on the weekends, but a little bit busy. So there's many other trails. In fact, you could spend half a day in here if you linked up those 3 areas of the reserve. There's a couple of little side tracks off the main track that would be worth exploring. Grass hills being a feature, there's one called the Grass Hills Circuit where there's lots of grass hills, in the middle of it's sort of boulders, a little in and out track. So there's that sort of thing you can do. You can also head up on the right to a lookout. The other great thing about Toohey Forest, apart from being close to the city and feeling like you're a million miles away within about 5 minutes, is that there's koalas there. It's quite a healthy koala population, and if you get off onto those quieter tracks, I think that's your best bet of seeing one. I've definitely seen koalas in the trees here at times. In fact, even one day seen one just off the boardwalk. So another great spot close to the city, accessible, got a mix of length of trails. I've got a bit of a bonus here. There's nothing at Toohey Forest itself in terms of having a drink after you walk. But if you head down Toohey Road, you'll find Hiker Brewing Company. Now, they're in an industrial shed. They've got long tables where you can share food, share tasting of beers. On the weekends, there's live entertainment. But what I like is that they're supporting the hiking community. They actually have hiking and trail running groups that you can join, or walks that you can join if you're looking to go with some people. So that's Toohey Forest. Staying south side, got to head down to Daisy Hill Forest. Daisy Hill, no matter where you are in Brisbane, if you're heading down the Gold Coast, you might have seen the turnoff. It's just past the sort of IKEA comes up on your right and the Daisy Hill turnoff comes up on your left. That is the main entry into Daisy Hill. This is another huge forest area. There's about 4 bushland reserves altogether. That main entry into Daisy Hill is a really beautiful place to have a picnic. In fact, it's a fantastic place to take visitors. Even if you want to do a short bush walk, you can actually do a really long one all day long if you like, if you walk through all the reserves. But there's a real variety of lengths of bushwalks, and it's just a fantastic place for a picnic afterwards. Grassy, open areas, quite shaded. And if you love koalas, here's a bonus with this one. Inside the Daisy Hill at the main entrance, there's actually a little wildlife centre run by Queensland Parks, which has got a gum tree in the middle, and there's always 1 or 2 koalas up the gum tree. There's feeding twice a day, so that's another small diversion from the bushwalking tracks at Daisy Hill. There's 2 other ways to get into Daisy Hill which I want to highlight to you because they've got different features. The first one is a bit closer to the city if you take the first Springwood exit off the freeway and head down to Underwood Road. Now, if you're a football fan, you might know this is the home of the Rochdale Rovers. There's also a large Buddhist temple here. Lots of sporting fields, so heaps of parking. You really will get a park down here. But what's great about this entrance into Daisy Hill is that there's a lovely paper bark boardwalk. It's like a mini wetlands reserve. The boardwalk is across a wetlands area, and there's some extraordinary birds in there. So once again, it's just another bonus thing you can do before or after a walk, and great to take the family there through that boardwalk. From this entrance, you can get into all the main tracks of Daisy Hill. Look, like Enoggera Reservoir, there's a mix of tracks in Daisy Hill. Some of them have got decent elevation, particularly coming in from Underwood Road, and they can be dry and loose gravel. So again, if you're into hiking poles, this would be a great place to take them. You definitely want some grip on your shoes to deal with the gravelly tracks that are in Daisy Hill. The third entrance into Daisy Hill is actually around this Underwood Road area, but more towards Rochdale on Ford Road. In fact, you can come in from the Bayside suburbs into Ford Road. Now, the reason I'm going to highlight this entrance is because apart from bushwalkers, so there's another car park down here to access, that's where you'll get the horses on the weekend. And who doesn't love seeing horses out on the trail as part of your walk? So that makes it just a lovely bonus to go down to Ford Road. I like the quarry circuit to do from here. There is a disused quarry in the middle of Daisy Hill. There's a nice view of it coming in from that Ford Road entrance. You sort of walk up to the lookout and then you can walk down to the quarry itself and around the outside of it. It's all filled with water. So once again, you'll get wildlife, you'll get wildflowers, and it's a great place to stop for a sort of a halfway point for morning or afternoon tea. Now, when you finished at Daisy Hill, if you're not up for a picnic, I've got a couple of ideas for you. The first is, particularly from that Ford Road entrance, you're close to Sirame Winery. It's probably only going to be another 10 minutes drive to get there. Sirame has a fantastic grassy hill area. People might know it from their music festivals that they have there. The views are out to the bay, but something that is fabulous in winter is that you can hire a fire pit and sit around. So what a great way to end the walk. The other thing we did just recently, walking in the Daisy Hill area, it was a cold and drizzly morning. The weather forecast wasn't right and we were a bit wet, looking to warm up, wanted a big hearty breakfast, and we actually stopped at IKEA on the way home. And we got there not long after the cafe opened, and we were really impressed by both the quality of the food and the value for money. So if you're looking for an idea for a morning stop, a little bit out of left field, but you could try IKEA on the way home. Now, the last walk I want to feature today is White Rock, which is just outside of Ipswich. It is a reserve area, so there's no dogs allowed. This one is going to be the hardest one to get to with public transport, because Daisy Hill you can get in at either Springwood or Daisy Hill on buses. But at White Rock there is a bus. It's at the back of Redbank Plains, sort of the suburbs of Ipswich, so coming in off the Ipswich motorway. There's a bus, but getting from the bus stop to the car park, there's about a 1.3 kilometre walk to get there. So it's definitely possible, but obviously it'll be a little bit easier if you've got a car. The reason I included White Rock, it's not as popular as some of the other walks we've been talking about. You may not have been there before actually, but the topography is quite different, and that's what I like about it. So one of the main features of White Rock is Balancing Rock, which is a very large rock structure. It is a sacred place for the First Nations people, and they ask you not to climb it. But even walking around the base and all the surrounding sort of rock formations, you get that sense of, sort of a bushranger's hideout, definitely the Aussie bush. And it's a lovely track to get up there and back. It's easy to moderate, maybe 5 to 6 kilometres return from the car park. Nice wildflowers and wildlife like lizards and so forth you'll see along the way. If that's a bit of a short walk for you and looking for something a bit more challenging, head out to the Granite Ridge, and you can get there once you've left sort of the Balancing Rock area. It's on the right. Get your All Trails map out, because the signage isn't fantastic at White Rock. So get your All Trails map out and look for the Granite Ridge area. You can climb up. You have to do a bit of rock scrambling to get up there, climbing up a few sort of big boulders. It looked a bit daunting at first, but we quickly found our foot and handholds to get up there, and it was really worth the effort, because when you get up to the top, you're on a large expanse of rock, which is a great place to take a break. But the views are fantastic, like all the way to the city, and it's just something really different, more like sort of the Stanthorpe region, getting out and scrambling on those big rocks. And then by the time you walk back to the car park, you've probably done a loop that's more in the 9 to 10 kilometre range. So White Rock is just a really different area to go to if you can make the effort to get out Ipswich way, because it it is at the back of the suburbs, there's nothing I can really recommend to go to afterwards. The picnic area is near the car park, not particularly spectacular. You could head up to Ipswich or back via the western suburbs. So those are my 5 fantastic walks in Brisbane. I hope that amongst those you've found something that inspires you to get out this weekend or any day of the week and get out walking in the Brisbane region. Just before I head off, I really want to ask you, because this is a new podcast, my first episode, if you like what you've heard today, please follow me. Hit that follow button, rate me, share with your friends, and most of all, give me your feedback. Leave comments. Let me know what you'd like to hear more of. But until next time, happy hiking.